The twin sons of Xylar rose over the capital city of Velrian, casting long shadows across towering crystal spires and streets lined with shimmering, bioluminescent pathways. The air hummed softly with energy, the mark of advanced technology integrated seamlessly into the very planet itself. At the heart of the city stood the grand palace of Queen Lysera, ruler of the Xylarian Empire. She was tall, elegant, and possessed eyes that shimmered like polished emeralds, eyes that had seen decades of political turmoil and interstellar conflicts. But today, Lysera felt a tension that went beyond normal royal concerns. She stood on the balcony overlooking the central plaza, her mind racing with thoughts of the latest intelligence reports. A hostile alien faction had been gaining power on the outer rim of the galaxy. Entire colonies had fallen to their advanced weaponry. Xylar, despite its strength, was vulnerable. The solution, Lysera knew, lay beyond her world. She had been in discussions with the United Human Federation, a relatively young but rapidly advancing species from a distant planet called Earth. Humans were unpredictable. They were emotional, stubborn, and sometimes reckless. Yet, they had something remarkable: raw strength, resilience, and an ability to innovate in ways that even the Xylarians could not always anticipate. Her advisors had presented the plan in meticulous detail. "Your Majesty," one said, bowing low, "the humans propose a union. Captain Elias Drake will marry you. This will symbolize a permanent alliance between our species." Lysera's emerald eyes narrowed. Marriage for diplomacy was not new, but it was unusual for the Xylarians to consider a union with a human. She had studied them extensively through reports and virtual records. They were taller than most Xylarians, physically robust, and strangely adaptable. Marriage, she murmured to herself. So the humans wished to seal this with a bond, personal as well as political. Her advisors nodded, unaware of the storm of thoughts brewing in their queen's mind. "It is a wise move, Your Majesty. Captain Drake has already proven himself in tactical operations. His strength and courage are well known." Lysera turned sharply, the folds of her ceremonial robes swishing around her. "Strength and courage," she said, "are only part of what I need to secure my people. I need intelligence, judgment, and loyalty. I hope this human possesses all these qualities far across the galaxy." Captain Elias Drake stood on the deck of the human delegation starship, observing Xylar through the large viewports. He was a man of striking presence, broad-shouldered, with keen hazel eyes and an unshakable calm in the face of uncertainty. His reputation as a warrior and strategist preceded him, yet he was not arrogant. He understood that diplomacy was as dangerous as combat. The moment the starship docked at Velrian, the atmosphere was electric. Xylarian officials moved with graceful precision, their movements fluid, almost like a dance. The humans, by contrast, appeared slightly awkward, but there was a quiet confidence in the way they carried themselves. Elias noticed the eyes of Xylarian soldiers on him, some curious, some wary. He knew they were assessing him not just as a diplomat, but as a potential threat. The grand entrance to the palace was a marvel of alien architecture. Doors carved from crystal opened silently as the delegation passed through, revealing a vast hall that shimmered with energy conduits. At the far end, on a raised dais, stood Queen Lysera herself. She regarded Elias with calm intensity, as if measuring every inch of him, yet revealing nothing of her thoughts. "Captain Drake," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, carrying a subtle weight of authority. "Welcome to Xylar, Your Majesty," Elias replied, bowing respectfully. "It is an honor to be here. I hope we can discuss matters that will benefit both our species." Lysera studied him for a long moment. He was taller than most Xylarians and had a physical presence that was hard to ignore. His shoulders were broad, his movements deliberate, yet there was a grace in his posture. She had read of humans' capabilities, but there was something about seeing him in person that brought the reports to life. "Very well, Captain," she said finally, motioning toward the center of the hall. "We have much to discuss. But first, a proposal." Her eyes glinted with an unreadable emotion. "To solidify the alliance between Xylar and Earth, I offer you a bond of marriage. This is not merely symbolic. It represents trust, cooperation, and shared responsibility for the future. Elias froze slightly at the words. He had anticipated negotiations, agreements, perhaps even military exercises, but a marriage proposal was unexpected. Yet, he did not falter. He had trained himself to remain calm, to respond with clarity. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "I am a soldier and a diplomat. If this alliance requires such a bond, I accept. Not for me, but for the safety and future of our species." Lysera's lips curved into a faint smile. This human. He did not hesitate. He did not balk at the weight of the decision. There was courage in that, and perhaps more importantly, there was a spark of something she had not anticipated, unwavering resolve. The first days of Elias's stay at the palace were filled with cultural orientation, protocol briefings, and tours of Xylarian technology. He observed devices that manipulated energy fields, ships that defied conventional physics, and cities that seemed alive with consciousness. Yet despite the wonders around him, Elias remained grounded. He engaged with Xylarians respectfully, learning quickly, adapting faster than anyone expected. Lysera watched him closely. She introduced him to various members of her court advisors, military leaders, and scholars. While many were impressed by his knowledge and adaptability, it was his physical demonstration of capability that began to turn heads. During a ceremonial event, Elias was asked to lift a ceremonial Waitan alien contraption that most Xylarians struggled to move. With a steady grin, he lifted it above his head without apparent effort, holding it as if it were a simple prop. The hall erupted in murmurs. Some were impressed, others suspicious. Lysera's eyebrows lifted slightly. The reports had understated his strength. "You are stronger than anticipated," she whispered privately to her chief advisor. "She is not the only one noticing," the advisor replied. "Captain Drake's presence commands attention. His abilities may influence more than just our political alliance." Lysera nodded, feeling a mixture of pride, curiosity, and caution. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but perhaps that unpredictability was what Xylar needed. Evenings were spent in private conversations between Lysera and Elias. They discussed philosophy, strategy, and the challenges their species faced. Elias spoke of human resilience, of the way they adapted to harsh environments, of their determination to protect their people. Lysera found herself intrigued not just by his words, but by the conviction behind them. "You speak as if humanity can overcome any obstacle," she remarked one evening, seated across from him in a quiet chamber that overlooked the glowing city below. Elias leaned forward slightly. "We have no choice, Your Majesty. Survival demands more than intelligence. It demands courage, strength, and sometimes the willingness to defy expectations." Lysera studied him silently, sensing a truth in his statement that resonated deeply. The humans had not yet revealed the full extent of their capabilities. She realized, and this human, Elias Drake, might be unlike any being she had ever known. As the first week came to a close, Lysera prepared for a ceremonial announcement of the alliance. The marriage would be formalized in front of the council, binding humans and Xylarians in a union that carried political, cultural, and strategic significance. Yet, even as she donned her ceremonial robes, Lysera felt a flutter of anticipation, not fear, but curiosity. She had studied humans for years, but she had never expected to meet one whose presence could challenge her understanding so profoundly. Elias, for his part, remained composed, though he sensed the tension in the palace. He knew this alliance could determine the future of two species, and he understood that his actions, his strength, and his character would be judged carefully not just by the queen, but by an entire civilization. When the day of the ceremony arrived, the palace halls were filled with dignitaries, scholars, and military leaders. Xylarian banners shimmered with energy, and human representatives stood in precise formation. As Lysera approached Elias, she could not help but notice the way he moved, confident, steady, and completely unshaken by the grandeur surrounding him. For the first time, she felt a mixture of relief and awe. The alliance was not just a political maneuver. In front of her stood a human who could match the might and intellect of her people. Perhaps, just perhaps, This union would change everything. And as the twin suns of Xylar rose high above Velrian, casting light across the galaxy on the brink of conflict, Queen Lysera and Captain Elias Drake prepared to take the first step in a partnership that would test the limits of courage, strength, and trust. The palace of Velrian had grown familiar to Elias Drake after the first week. He walked the crystal corridors with quiet confidence, observing the delicate balance of power, culture, and ritual that shaped Xylarian life. Though he had been trained for diplomacy and war alike, he understood that the palace was its own battlefield, one where knowledge, patience, and respect were as important as strength. Queen Lysera watched him carefully, noting his reactions to her people and their customs. The humans were still new to Xylar, but Elias adapted quickly. He learned to use the anti-gravity lifts, handle alien communication devices, and even navigate the complex etiquette of Xylarian courts. Yet there was something more to him, something beyond intellect and training. He moved with a natural strength, a quiet assurance that commanded attention without words. Lysera decided it was time to test this further. She arranged a series of ceremonial trials, not to embarrass him, but to see how he performed under pressure. The first was simple by Xylarian standards, lifting the Titan frame, a massive metal structure used in military training, usually handled only by seasoned Xylarian soldiers. The crowd gathered in the central plaza for the demonstration. The Xylarians were curious. Many whispered among themselves, skeptical that a human could perform at all. Elias approached the Titan frame without hesitation. He crouched slightly, muscles tense, and then, in one smooth motion, lifted it above his head. The frame glowed faintly as if reacting to the strength of the one holding it. Gasps echoed through the plaza. Lysera's emerald eyes widened slightly. This was no ordinary human. The Titan frame was considered a heavy object even for elite Xylarians. Yet Elias held it easily, steady as a rock. Impressive, she whispered to herself. She could feel her advisors shifting uneasily beside her. Some looked on with awe, others with a flicker of concern. The humans were already different, but Elias proved that difference was extraordinary. The next trial was one of agility. Xylarians prided themselves on speed and reflexes. They led Elias to the crystalline maze, a labyrinth of shifting walls and energy barriers designed to test reaction time and strategy. Xylarians sprinted through it with graceful precision, avoiding energy traps that would immobilize most beings. Elias paused for only a moment, scanning the maze. Then he moved. His steps were swift, precise, and intelligent. He leapt over moving barriers, ducked under shifting panels, and navigated complex pathways as if he had seen them all before. Observers could hardly believe their eyes. Where a Xylarian might take several attempts, Elias reached the center in record time. A small smile on his face, Lysera studied him silently. Strength was one thing, but intelligence paired with physical skill was another. He demonstrated both, and she realized that humans might possess a combination of traits that even the most advanced Xylarians could not predict. After the trials, she invited Elias to a private audience in her chambers. The room overlooked the city, glowing softly under the twin suns. Lysera seated herself on a carved crystal throne, her expression thoughtful. "You move with remarkable skill," she said. "I have read reports about human strength and agility, but seeing it firsthand, it is extraordinary." Elias bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Humans train in many ways, and we are often pushed to survive harsh conditions. That makes us resilient. I did not mean to impress. It is simply how I move." Lysera leaned forward slightly, intrigued. "Your humility is surprising. Most Xylarians would boast, yet you do not. Strength paired with humility. That is rare." He smiled faintly. "I have learned that strength without control or purpose can be dangerous. Power alone does not define a warrior. How one uses it does." Lysera felt a spark of respect. Perhaps this human was not only strong but wise beyond his appearance. Days passed, and Elias continued to demonstrate his adaptability. He joined Xylarian scholars in their laboratories, observing experiments that manipulated energy fields and gravity. Though unfamiliar with their scientific principles, He asked insightful questions and offered strategies based on logic and practicality. Scholars, initially skeptical, began to acknowledge his intelligence. One evening, Lysera observed him in the palace gardens. He was lifting enormous stone blocks, practicing techniques from his own planet, yet moving with careful precision so as not to damage the intricate alien landscaping. His physical strength was astonishing, but his control and attention to detail impressed her even more. "This human," Lysera murmured, "is unlike any being I have known. He possesses strength, intelligence, and honor." She realized that the alliance was not merely political. It could be transformational. Humans might change the way Xylarians saw power itself. Not all moments were formal. Elias also learned Xylarian customs through daily life. He shared meals with Lysera, exploring alien cuisines and discussing philosophies. He laughed easily, listened attentively, and even played games of skill with her advisors, winning some and losing others gracefully. One day, a minor crisis occurred in the palace's energy grid. A containment barrier flickered dangerously, threatening to release a pulse that could harm the staff. While Xylarians debated the technicalities, Elias assessed the situation quickly. He calculated the safest angle, lifted the heavy containment shield manually, and stabilized the system before any damage occurred. The onlookers were stunned. Lysera's heart raced. This human not only had strength, but the foresight to use it precisely when it mattered. She realized that humans could respond to unexpected dangers in ways that even the most disciplined Xylarians might hesitate to do. Later, Lysera invited Elias to accompany her on a journey to observe a border colony. She wanted to see how he interacted with Xylarian civilians and soldiers in unfamiliar settings. As they arrived, alarms sounded. A small rebel faction had attempted a sabotage, targeting the colony's energy core. Without hesitation, Elias assessed the situation. He coordinated the defense, lifting debris that blocked escape routes, clearing fallen energy conduits, and guiding civilians to safety. When combat became necessary, he moved with skill and precision, neutralizing threats without unnecessary force. Lysera, observing from a vantage point, felt a mixture of awe and something more complex. This human had saved countless lives with a combination of intelligence, bravery, and unmatched physical strength. She realized that her earlier assumptions about humans had been incomplete. They were not merely allies, they could be protectors, innovators, and forces capable of tipping the balance of power. Back at the palace, after the crisis, Lysera and Elias stood on the balcony, overlooking the glowing city. Silence stretched between them for a moment, filled with unspoken understanding. "You are remarkable," Lysera said finally, her voice softer than usual. Elias shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "I only do what I must. Strength is useless if it cannot protect those who depend on it." Lysera's mind raced. Could humans truly possess such potential? And if so, how would this change her kingdom, her people, and the galaxy? She had entered this alliance expecting diplomacy, strategy, and perhaps some physical assistance. Instead, she had discovered something far more profound, a being whose abilities challenged everything she thought she knew. That night, Lysera sat alone in her private chambers. She reflected on the week's events, the trials, the crises, the quiet moments of conversation. Elias was not only strong, but he embodied qualities she had long admired: courage, intelligence, humility, and moral clarity. She understood now that humans could be catalysts for transformation. In this marriage, this union was no longer merely symbolic. It held the potential to change the destiny of Xylar itself. As the twin moons rose above Velrian, casting silver light across the palace, Lysera realized that she was witnessing the beginning of something extraordinary. The human before her was not just a representative of his species. He was a force that could reshape history, a living example of the untapped potential of humanity. And somewhere deep within her, a spark of anticipation grew, a curiosity, a hope, and perhaps even a sense of wonder at what might come next. The border colonies of Xylar were peaceful, or at least they had seemed so, nestled on jagged plateaus and bathed in the pale light of Xylar's twin suns. They had long been a buffer against potential invasions from hostile factions. Yet peace was fragile. Intelligence reports had warned of increased enemy activity along the Outer Rim, but few had expected the attack that arrived on that day. Captain Elias Drake stood at the edge of the colony, surveying the horizon. The sun glinted off his armor, but it was not the metal that drew attention, it was the calm authority he radiated. Xylarians nearby shifted uneasily. They were trained soldiers, yet they sensed that something extraordinary was about to unfold. "Your Majesty," a Xylarian officer said over comms. "Scanners indicate multiple enemy ships approaching fast. They appear to be armed with advanced plasma weaponry." Lysera, standing nearby in her ceremonial attire modified for mobility, turned to Elias. "This is your first real test," she said quietly. "Lead our forces. Protect the colonies." Elias nodded, eyes narrowing. "We will hold them. We have no choice." The sky darkened with the arrival of enemy ships, their sleek designs cutting across the atmosphere like predatory birds. The attack was sudden, brutal, and relentless. Explosions rocked the colony as plasma bolts scorched the landscape. Civilians screamed and scrambled for shelter. Elias immediately assessed the situation. He directed Xylarian soldiers to secure civilians while coordinating with human troops in the area. But it soon became clear that conventional tactics alone would not suffice. The enemy was faster, more coordinated, and more aggressive than expected. Without hesitation, Elias took action himself. He sprinted into the heart of the attack, dodging plasma blasts and lifting heavy debris that blocked escape routes. Xylarians watched in stunned silence as the human moved with a combination of speed, strength, and strategy that seemed almost unreal. In one instance, a collapsed energy bridge threatened to trap dozens of civilians. Elias dashed forward, hoisted the bridge above his head with apparent ease, and carried it aside, clearing the way. The people stared, mouths open in disbelief. Even the seasoned Xylarian soldiers could not match his power. Lysera, observing from a high vantage point, felt her heart race. She had known humans were strong, but witnessing Elias in action was beyond any report or training simulation. Every decision he made, every movement he executed, was precise, controlled, and devastatingly effective. Amid the chaos, the enemy deployed a squad of elite combatants, specialized warriors known for brutal efficiency. They descended upon the colony, targeting both humans and Xylarians alike. Elias confronted them directly. The duel was fierce. Plasma blades clashed against reinforced armor, and Elias moved with astonishing reflexes, deflecting strikes and countering with force that left even the enemy awestruck. He lifted massive fallen machinery and used it to shield civilians, then threw it with such precision that it disarmed attackers without lethal force. Lysera watched, unable to look away. His strength was unimaginable, but more than that, it was his strategic mind. He anticipated enemy movements, adapted instantly, and coordinated his forces with clarity. Xylarians who had doubted humans before now found themselves in awe. The battle raged for hours. Ships clashed above, sending arcs of plasma into the sky. Ground troops fought desperately, but it was Elias who became the fulcrum of the defense. He scaled walls, broke through barricades, and rescued trapped soldiers. At one point, he carried 3 unconscious Xylarians at once, sprinting across the battlefield to safety. Lysera could no longer deny it. The human she had married was not just strong, he was extraordinary. His abilities were beyond anything Xylarian science could fully explain. And yet, he wielded that power with restraint and honor. He never attacked indiscriminately. He never put civilians or allies in unnecessary danger. His strength was tempered by wisdom, something that made him both terrifying and inspiring. As the sun began to set, the enemy launched their final assault, a concentrated attack designed to break the colony's defenses once and for all. Many Xylarians began to falter, their morale shaken by the enemy's relentless advance. Elias took charge. He organized defensive lines, assigned leaders, and personally led counterattacks. His physical feats were breathtaking. He smashed enemy vehicles with his bare hands, lifted fallen energy pylons to block advancing troops, and used debris to form temporary barriers that redirected attacks away from civilians. but it was his tactical mind that proved decisive. He noticed a flaw in the enemy's formation, a small but critical gap. He directed his forces to exploit it. The attack turned. The enemy, once confident and aggressive, now struggled to keep their footing against the coordinated human Xylarian counterstrike. Lysera's heart swelled with pride and awe. Here was a human, one individual, who could inspire hope and change the course of a battle through courage, strength, and intellect. She had expected diplomacy, perhaps a show of power. She had never imagined witnessing something this extraordinary firsthand. By nightfall, the enemy forces were in retreat. Fires burned across the colony, but the people were safe. Civilians emerged from shelters, cheering for the human who had saved them. Xylarian soldiers saluted, their respect evident in their expressions. Elias, exhausted but steady, surveyed the aftermath. He ensured all civilians were accounted for and that the wounded received attention. He spoke quietly with Lysera, reviewing the battle and planning for any future threats. Despite his remarkable feats, he remained calm, humble, and focused on the well-being of others. Lysera followed him through the streets, observing silently. She saw the admiration of her people, the newfound trust between humans and Xylarians, and the sense of hope that had replaced fear. This human had not only protected a colony, he had reshaped the perception of humanity. Across an entire civilization, later, in the palace, the queen summoned her advisors. They spoke in hushed tones, reviewing reports and discussing the implications of the battle. Many were concerned human strength, while beneficial, could also shift the balance of power within Xylar itself. Yet even the most cautious advisors could not deny Elias's impact. Lysera interrupted the discussion, her voice steady but filled with conviction. This human, he is more than an ally. He embodies a potential we have never seen before. We cannot underestimate him, nor should we fear him. We must learn from him, respect him, and integrate his strength into our plans for the future. Humanity is not just a partner, it is a force that can change the galaxy. Her advisors exchanged glances, some hesitant, some inspired. The queen's vision was clear. Elias's strength was not a threat. It was an opportunity. That night, Lysera visited Elias in his quarters. He was resting but alert, reviewing maps and strategic reports. She approached quietly, observing him in the dim light of the twin moons. "You were incredible today," she said softly. Elias looked up, offering a faint smile. "I only did what was necessary. The people needed protection. That is always my priority." Lysera shook her head slightly, amazed. "You are not just strong. You are precise, intelligent, and honorable. I have never seen anything like it. Xylar underestimated humanity, and I see now that we were blind." He nodded humbly. "We can achieve much if we work together. But strength alone is not enough. Trust, coordination, and planning are equally important." Lysera's thoughts drifted. This human had shown her not only the power of the body, but the power of the mind and heart combined. He had proven that humanity was more than reports or speculation. It was a species capable of extraordinary feats. In the following days, the story of the battle spread across Xylar. Humans were no longer seen as newcomers or curiosities. They were heroes, protectors, and equals. The alliance, once tentative and uncertain, now had a foundation built on respect and shared experience. Lysera reflected on the events, realizing that the marriage she had entered for political reasons had become something far deeper. She had gained insight into humanity, witnessed courage and strength that defied imagination, and found a partner capable of inspiring hope in a galaxy threatened by darkness. As the twin moons rose once more over Velrian, Lysera understood that the future of Xylar and perhaps the galaxy was being shaped by a human who had proven that strength, intelligence, and honor could overcome even the most terrifying odds. The battle had ended, but the real journey was only beginning, and in her heart, Queen Lysera knew that Elias Drake was destined to be more than an ally, more than a protector. He was a force that could redefine the limits of possibility, and she could not wait to see what he would accomplish next. The victory at the border colonies had brought relief to the Xylarian Empire, but peace was fragile. In the weeks that followed, Queen Lysera sensed tension beneath the surface of her court. Whispers lingered in the corridors of the palace, and subtle glances between advisors suggested disagreements she had not anticipated. Elias Drake had proven himself in battle, yet not everyone welcomed the rise of humanity's influence. Some Xylarians feared that humans, with their extraordinary abilities and unpredictable nature, might overshadow the Empire's traditions and power. Lysera knew she had to act carefully. She could not allow internal divisions to weaken Xylar, especially not now, when enemies still lurked beyond the Outer Rim. One evening, Lysera summoned Elias to her private chambers. The palace lights shimmered softly, reflecting off crystal walls that lined the room. "There are factions within my court," she began cautiously. "They do not trust humans. Some may even be plotting against us." Elias listened carefully, his expression calm but alert. "I suspected as much," he said. "Power often brings fear, but fear can be managed with strategy, not suppression." Lysera nodded. "I need your help, not just in combat, but in navigating our internal politics. We must identify those who might betray us before it is too late." The following day, Lysera organized a series of gatherings under the guise of tradition and ceremony. One such event was a council of trials, where members of the court displayed their skills in various forms of strategy, combat, and diplomacy. Secretly, it was designed to reveal loyalties and uncover any dissent. Elias participated willingly. Though the events were unfamiliar, he approached each trial with a mixture of intelligence and adaptability. He solved complex strategic puzzles, demonstrating foresight that left even seasoned Xylarians in awe. In mock duels, he showcased strength and agility, but with careful control. Never aiming to humiliate his opponents, observers began to whisper. Some were impressed, some intimidated, and some uneasy. Elias's presence highlighted weaknesses in their own abilities and exposed hesitation in those who sought to undermine the queen. Lysera watched silently. She realized that his strength was not merely physical. It revealed truths about character, courage, and integrity. A human, she thought, could change the balance of power within her empire not by force alone, but by example. Despite these measures, a small faction remained active in secrecy. They conspired to test Elias directly, under the guise of a ceremonial duel. The arena was prepared a large chamber with shifting energy barriers and holographic obstacles. The rules of tradition allowed for competition, but no real harm was expected. Elias entered the arena with calm confidence, his hazel eyes scanning the field. Opponents emerged, elite Xylarian warriors, chosen for their skill and cunning. The crowd held its breath. The duel began. Xylarians attacked with precision, relying on agility, tactics, and their energy blades. Elias countered, moving faster than anyone expected, deflecting strikes and maneuvering with a combination of brute strength and strategic insight. At one point, a warrior attempted a sudden, hidden strike, a move that could have seriously injured a normal opponent. Elias reacted instantly. He intercepted the attack with his bare hands, redirecting the energy harmlessly toward the ground. The crowd gasped. Even the conspirators could not hide their astonishment. Lysera, seated above the arena, felt a mixture of pride and awe. He was not only strong, he was disciplined, intelligent, and morally sound. He used his strength to protect, not to dominate, and in doing so, he revealed the hidden weaknesses of those who had sought to challenge him. After the duel, Elias approached the queen privately. "It seems not everyone accepts this alliance willingly," he observed quietly. Lysera nodded. "Yes, some fear the unknown, some fear change, and some fear you." Elias smiled faintly. "Fear is natural, but it can be addressed through transparency, trust, and example. Show them that our goals are shared, and they will follow or at least respect the path we must take." Lysera considered his words. His approach was thoughtful, subtle, and effective. Not only had he displayed extraordinary strength, but he had also won hearts through wisdom and restraint. This human, she realized, was teaching her people a new form of leadership, one built on respect and shared purpose, rather than fear alone. Weeks passed, and Elias continued to train and guide both humans and Xylarians. He developed exercises that combine physical skill with strategic thinking, teaching young soldiers how to anticipate enemy movements, adapt quickly, and act decisively. Even the older, more experienced warriors began to respect his methods, realizing that strength alone was insufficient. Intelligence, teamwork, and discipline were equally important during one training session. A small sabotage attempt occurred. A hidden mechanism in the training ground released a dangerous energy pulse, intended to harm participants. Elias noticed it immediately. With precise calculations and physical agility, he neutralized the mechanism, saving several Xylarians from injury. Lysera, observing from above, felt her admiration deepen. She had seen humans perform extraordinary feats before, but the combination of foresight, strength, and moral control in Elias was unprecedented. The palace was not free from intrigue, however. Advisors whispered in corners, debating whether the humans should be fully trusted. A small group, led by a senior counselor named Valor, secretly communicated with factions outside the palace, questioning Lysera's judgment. They feared that human influence could reshape Xylarian traditions, and even threaten her own authority. Lysera knew that confrontation was inevitable, but she also trusted Elias. Together, they devised a plan to reveal any conspiracies without direct conflict. Using a combination of strategic gatherings, subtle challenges, and public demonstrations, they gradually drew the dissenters into the open. During one such gathering, Valor attempted to publicly challenge Elias's presence, questioning whether a human should participate in Xylarian governance and training. Elias responded with calm dignity. "I do not seek to replace tradition," he said. "I seek to strengthen it. We all share the same goal, protection of Xylar and the safety of its people. Let our actions, not our fears, guide our judgments." The room fell silent. Valor faltered, unable to counter the logic and authority in Elias's words. The other advisors began to nod in agreement, recognizing that fear had clouded their judgment. Lysera watched silently, proud of Elias's restraint and wisdom. He had not needed to use force. His integrity and skill had been enough to shift hearts and minds. Even with the conspiracies revealed, Elias remained vigilant. He continued to patrol the palace, train with soldiers, and advise Lysera on both internal and external matters. His presence had transformed the court. Fear and doubt had been replaced with respect, admiration, and a growing willingness to embrace change. Lysera, reflecting on these events, realized that Elias's greatest strength was not physical alone. It was the way he combined courage, intellect, and moral clarity. He demonstrated that true power lay not in domination, but in the ability to inspire trust, protect others, and act decisively when necessary. One evening, Lysera and Elias walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons cast silver light across the crystalline pathways. "You have changed more than I expected," she said softly. Elias glanced at her. "Change is inevitable, Your Majesty. The question is whether we guide it or let it guide us." Lysera smiled faintly. "You have guided me and my people. Perhaps humans are more than I imagined." Elias nodded. "We can be that, but only if we act with purpose, discipline, and respect. Strength without control is dangerous. Wisdom without courage is useless. Together, we can achieve balance." As the weeks turned into months, the alliance between humans and Xylarians strengthened. Citizens began to see humans not as strangers, but as protectors and partners. Soldiers trained side by side, sharing tactics and techniques that combined the best of both species. And always at the center of this transformation was Elias Drake, human, warrior, strategist, and now a symbol of what humanity could offer the galaxy. Lysera understood that the political marriage she had entered for alliance had become something far greater. It was no longer a matter of politics alone, it was a partnership built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and the recognition of extraordinary ability. Yet the galaxy remained a dangerous place. While internal threats had been revealed, external enemies still lurked beyond the borders. Lysera knew that their true challenges were only beginning, and when those threats emerged, she trusted that Elias's strength, intelligence, and honor would be the beacon guiding Xylar through the dark days ahead. As the twin moons rose high above Velrian, Lysera felt a quiet certainty. The human she had married was not only a warrior, but a force capable of changing the destiny of her people. The Empire had been tested, and it had survived. But the next trials would be greater, and the real strength of humanity and Xylarians united would soon be revealed. And in that knowledge, Lysera found hope and something more profound. The realization that she was witnessing the dawn of a new era, one where courage, intelligence, and extraordinary strength could shape the future of a galaxy in turmoil. The twin suns of Xylar rose over the horizon, casting golden light across the capital city of Velrian. The air hummed with energy, signaling preparation and anticipation. Reports had arrived. The hostile alien faction, relentless and ambitious, had amassed a fleet near the Outer Rim, preparing for a full-scale invasion. This would be the ultimate test of the human-Xylarian alliance. Queen Lysera stood on the palace balcony, her emerald eyes scanning the distant stars. At her side was Captain Elias Drake, calm and composed, a stark contrast to the tension that gripped the Xylarian court. Soldiers moved with purpose in the streets below, arranging defenses and coordinating strategies with meticulous precision. The alliance had grown stronger since their first battles. But this invasion threatened to engulf everything. Do you believe we are ready? Lysera asked quietly, her voice tinged with concern. Elias looked toward the horizon. We have trained together, adapted together, and learned from each other. We are ready, but readiness is only part of victory. Courage, speed, and trust will carry us further. Lysera nodded, sensing the calm certainty in his words. Humanity, she realized, was more than raw strength. It was courage guided by intelligence, tempered with honor. And Elias embodied all of it. The enemy fleet descended upon Xylar with ruthless efficiency. Their ships unleashed waves of energy that streaked across the sky like molten lightning. Ground forces scrambled, shields flared, and alarms echoed across the city. Civilians were evacuated while Xylarian and human troops prepared for the confrontation that would determine the fate of the Empire. Elias moved through the command center with deliberate precision. He coordinated orbital defenses, ground forces, and evacuation routes, analyzing the enemy's movements and predicting their tactics. Where many Xylarians hesitated, he acted instantly, adjusting plans and deploying resources to the most critical points. Lysera observed, her heart racing. She had seen him perform incredible feats in battle before, but now, with the entire Empire at stake, she watched him wield strategy and strength like a master conductor orchestrating a symphony of war. The first wave of enemy ships breached the outer defenses. Human and Xylarian pilots engaged in aerial combat, their ships darting through the skies with agility and precision. Elias, however, was not content to remain in the command center. He led a strike team to the front lines, moving with astonishing speed and skill. On the ground, he lifted massive alien vehicles, redirecting them to block advancing enemy units. He dismantled energy barriers with a single blow, cleared debris from streets to protect civilians, and used fallen structures as shields and weapons with incredible accuracy. Each movement combined brute strength with tactical intelligence, leaving both allies and enemies in awe. Lysera, watching from a high vantage point, felt her breath catch. She had always known humans were strong, but witnessing Elias in the heat of a battle that spanned city, streets, and skies was beyond anything she could have imagined. The enemy unleashed their elite assault. Units warriors trained to adapt to any situation, armed with weapons capable of destroying entire platoons. They targeted the city center, where key defenses and command posts were located. Elias anticipated their strategy. With calm determination, he intercepted the units, using both his strength and intellect. He lifted collapsed buildings to create barricades, hurled debris with precision to disable enemy weapons, and moved civilians to safety without slowing his advance. One by one, enemy combatants fell to his combined power and strategy. He did not attack recklessly. Every strike was calculated to neutralize threats without unnecessary destruction. Xylarian soldiers, fighting alongside him, found themselves inspired. their morale strengthened by his presence. Even the most skeptical observers could not deny it. This human was extraordinary, a force that could turn the tide of an entire battle. As the battle raged, Lysera and Elias coordinated attacks across multiple fronts. Spacecraft maneuvered in orbit, energy shields flared, and explosions lit the sky in brilliant arcs. Yet despite the chaos, Elias maintained control. He anticipated enemy movements, adapted to unexpected attacks, and ensured that both civilians and soldiers remained protected. At a critical moment, the enemy launched a massive energy strike aimed directly at Velrian's central power hub. Destruction of the hub would cripple the city and allow enemy forces to overwhelm the defenses. Elias reacted instantly. He charged into the path of the energy wave, lifting a massive structure to absorb and redirect the blast. The ground shook, and sparks rained around him, but he held firm. The enemy's strike failed, their plan thwarted by one human's courage and strength. Lysera's eyes shone with awe. She realized, fully and completely, that humans were not just allies, they were a force capable of extraordinary feats. A species that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the mightiest of civilizations. The enemy faltered, their confidence shaken by the combined human-Xylarian defense. Elias seized the moment. He led a coordinated counterattack, directing troops to exploit weaknesses, disable ships, and reclaim territory. Every move was precise, every decision calculated. In the final phase of the battle, Elias confronted the enemy commander directly, a towering, armored alien whose strength rivaled his own. The duel was fierce, energy weapons clashing, shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Elias moved with unmatched speed, strength, and intelligence, deflecting attacks and striking with precision. The commander underestimated him, believing human strength could not match Xylarian or alien power. Within moments, the duel was over. Elias disarmed the commander and forced a surrender, demonstrating both physical dominance and strategic brilliance. Enemy morale collapsed, and retreat became inevitable. When the dust settled, the battlefield was silent except for the cries of relief and cheers of victory. Civilians emerged from shelters, soldiers saluted, and Lysera approached Elias, her heart swelling with pride and gratitude. "You have done the impossible," she said softly. "You have saved Xylar, and perhaps the galaxy itself." Elias shook his head. "We did this together. Humans and Xylarians, our unity made this possible. Strength alone is never enough. It is trust, coordination, and courage that wins battles." Lysera smiled, realizing the truth in his words. She had entered this alliance for political reasons, expecting diplomacy, strategy, and assistance. Instead, she had witnessed something far greater, a human whose strength, wisdom, and honor could inspire an entire civilization and change the course of history. In the aftermath, Xylar celebrated. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were heroes, protectors, and equals. Soldiers trained together, engineers collaborated on new technology, and civilians embraced the partnership that had ensured their survival. The political marriage between Lysera and Elias became a symbol of unity, hope, and shared destiny. Lysera reflected on the journey, from the first tentative meetings to the trials, the crises, and the final battle. She had witnessed the full measure of human potential. Elias had proven that humans were more than reports or rumors. They were extraordinary beings capable of courage, strength, and wisdom beyond imagination. She approached him as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long golden shadows across the city. "You have shown me everything," she said softly. "Strength, intelligence, courage, and humility. I never imagined a human could embody all of this." Elias looked at her, calm and confident. "We all have the potential, Your Majesty. Sometimes we just need the chance to show it." Lysera nodded. "And you have shown us the way. Together, we will lead Xylar and humanity into a new era." The following weeks marked the beginning of a transformed empire. Humans and Xylarians worked side by side, sharing knowledge, technology, and tactics. The twin civilizations strengthened their defenses, rebuilt colonies, and forged alliances that had once seemed impossible. And always, at the center of this transformation, stood Elias Drake, a symbol of courage, strength, and possibility. Sarah realized that the marriage, once political, had become much more. It represented partnership, trust, and the merging of two species capable of achieving greatness together. And it was not just an alliance of convenience, it was a testament to the extraordinary potential of humanity, now witnessed and respected across the galaxy. As the twin moons rose above Velrian, casting silver light across the city, Sarah looked at Elias with a mixture of pride and wonder. She had entered this union expecting diplomacy, but she had gained something far more profound: a partner, a hero, and a living example of the strength of humans. Elias smiled faintly, his eyes reflecting the moon's glow. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We have much to build, many battles to face, and a future to shape. Together, we can achieve anything." Sarah nodded, feeling hope like never before. The human she had married had not only saved her empire, but had redefined what it meant to be strong, brave, and wise. The galaxy had witnessed his extraordinary abilities, and in doing so, it had entered a new era, one defined by unity, courage, and the limitless potential of humanity. And in that moment, the Queen understood the truth she had seen all along. The human before her was not just an ally or a protector. He was a force capable of shaping destiny, inspiring hope, and proving that humanity, united with the stars, could overcome any challenge the universe might throw their way.